It started on a Tuesday that cooked the sidewalk like a skillet. I was 8, sweaty in my school polo, crouched on the tile floor of a laundry room that smelled like bleach and lemon, digging through a tall silver trash can because someone at school had called my science project junk and tossed it along with a strip of photos of my mom when she was a kid. And I knew if the garbage truck came before I found that shoebox, it was gone for good. The lid hissed when I pressed the pedal. Plastic crackled, my fingers went gray with detergent dust, and right when my chest got tight enough to squeak, I heard calm footsteps and a voice behind me, warm and surprised at the same time, like a guy who just found a puppy asleep in his gym bag. "You okay, Jaden?" That was Ethan Ward, quiet shoes, spotless truck, the man who owned the big stone house where my mom cleaned, and I couldn't look up because if I did, I'd cry, so I kept digging and said, "They threw it away. My project. And my mom's pictures." And he didn't make a speech about how it would be fine. He just got gloves and knelt beside me like this was his mess too. My mom, Tanya, came in fast, rainstorm fast. Jaden Carter, breathless and scared and trying to be stern, and I blurted it out before I could swallow it. How Principal Meredith Blake at Clearwater Academy said my solar setup was slum work. How she told the whole class that kids like me should accept our place. And I watched something crack behind my mom's eyes, not loud, just a quiet fissure. Only a kid recognizes. And she begged Mr. Ward not to get involved, said these things happen, said I'd just build another. And he nodded, but the nod wasn't surrender. It was a promise he had already decided to keep. That night, I couldn't sleep because the cicadas were singing, and my brain kept replaying the word trash. Meanwhile, down the hall, I heard Mr. Ward's office chair creak, and I knew he was digging too, not in cans, but in files, grades, notes, all the invisible bins people use to sort kids before the kids even know it's happening. Next morning, he told my mom he'd go to the school, and she shook her head so hard, the plates in the drying rack clicked. "Please don't, I need this job. My boy needs that school." And he said, "Steady, then we'll make sure you keep both." And when a man says it like that, you feel the ground tilt under your feet. Clearwater's lobby smelled like lemon polish and money awards in glass cases. The kind of quiet that's not peace, just rules, and Dr. Blake smiled without her eyes. Mr. Ward always an honor. And then she looked at me and passed me in the same second, like I was a smudge on a window, and when he asked about the project, she called it refuse, said, "Excellence needs polish and resources," said, "We must be realistic about the limitations of scholarship." Students said, "There's dignity in technical work, you know. Hands-on paths," and Mr. Ward didn't raise his voice, he just set his hand flat on her desk, like he was keeping the room from spinning, and asked how many kids she'd given that same speech to, and when she said entries were already submitted, he said, "Unsubmit one," and the meeting ended in a handshake, stiff as cardboard. What I didn't know till later was that he'd left his phone recording in his jacket pocket, so every careful sentence about kids like him and Brand and realistic found its way onto a little red waveform, small enough to fit inside a text message, strong enough to split open a system. 2 days later, the school bit back. I got called into Dr. Blake's office, told they found sensors and soldering wire in my backpack that matched items missing from the lab, told it's okay to confess, because children from different social realities sometimes test boundaries. Told that if I admit it, they can support my growth. And I said I didn't take anything. And she sighed like I'd let her down personally, then sent me home on a temporary suspension, pending investigation. And my mom cried on a back stairwell at work, where no one could hear. And that night, Mr. Ward told us to come to his kitchen. Big island bowl of fruit nobody touched. And he said, "I've seen this pattern before." Polite words hiding ugly math. So we're going to answer with law, sunlight, and data. And he'd already called Andrea a civil rights attorney, with eyes like searchlights, and Roman a reporter who asked for specifics, not sob stories, and he had a data team pulling 5 years of Clearwater records. And my mom said he didn't owe us, and he said he owed us because he should have noticed sooner. And that is not charity talk. That is confession talk. You feel the difference in your bones. Andrea handed my mom a small recorder, told her to keep it on at school. Roman asked names and dates and who said what and how often. And the data rolled in slow but heavy, not headlines. Just numbers that hummed scholarship kids, mostly black or brown or working class, counseled out of AP tracks at triple the rate their projects reassigned, or deemed non-competitive at double the rate, discipline referrals 4 times more likely to be for attitude or respect. And side by side you could see how opportunity bled out through paper cuts. You know what I mean? Dr. Blake even called me in again to warn me too much attention from important people breeds unrealistic expectations, said pity doesn't last forever, said stability does, and when I asked if she'd ever told a doctor's kid to be realistic, she smiled and said, "Let's focus on your path," which was the politest way I have ever been told to stand still. Friday morning, the parking lot looked like a festival of bad PR vans with dishes, boom mics, parents dragging kids by the wrists. And Dr. Blake tried to plant herself at the top step and say, "We're a reputable institution," but Andrea unfolded a letter from the Department of Education, and Roman hit play on a tablet, and suddenly her voice was filling the courtyard, without the haircut and pearls to soften it. We must be realistic about the limitations of these scholarship students. Brand, wild bird in a gilded cage. And when the recording ended, you could hear the math running in every parent's head, where their kids landed on the brand ladder, who got steered away from what. And then Andrea layered on the numbers 17 documented cases in 5 years of opportunities pulled from scholarship students. All but one Black or Latino and Roman's people had bank deposits to a personal account from a handful of families whose kids saw rivals quietly sidelined. And Dr. Blake said, context, gratitude, college counseling, all of it in one breath. And my mom stepped forward without shaking and told her to say, "Teach him his place," to his face, and I walked up and asked why she called me a thief, and chose my future before I had a chance to try. And for a second, nobody moved then. Andrea handed her an official notice. Mr. Ward announced the Ward Carter Foundation. For kids like me, Roman kept filming. Parents cried and apologized and called other parents, and a paralegal brought over my shoebox, found in a contractor bag behind admin, under cafeteria schedules. Which is a funny place for excellence to live. Yeah, that happened. After the cameras left, it didn't feel like victory. It felt like my mom's hands when she finally sat down, palms up and tired. And Mr. Ward rinsed coffee mugs and said, "Justice isn't just who falls, it's who gets to stand." And I asked if I'd still get to stand at the state fair, and he smiled like he knew something I didn't. 6 months later, my mom straightened my tie in a hallway that smelled like floor wax and giant dreams, and my project didn't look like the others, a little glue uneven, a label with one letter crowded. But when I flipped the switch, the panel fed a battery, and the bulbs lit, and a judge in a blue blazer asked what problem I was solving, and I told him the truth. For kids like me who have to choose between homework and helping pay the light bill, if power at home is cheaper, then ambition costs less from the start. And we won first, and the trophy sits on my shelf like a small son. Mr. Ward kept his promise. The foundation paid tuitions and bought laptops and funded projects that didn't sparkle but worked. My mom traded rubber gloves for a desk with her name on it. As director, a handful of us transferred out of Clearwater and found teachers who saw what we could do. And Dr. Blake lost her license for a stretch, then wrote an essay about misinterpretation and realism and how excellence is complicated and the world moved on the way it always does, fast, messy, selective. Here's the part that gets people fighting in the comments. And that's okay, we can handle it. Did we need a wealthy man to make the doors open? Yes and no. The system should have worked without him. It didn't. He used his name to make it listen. Is that fair? Not even close. Is it real? Absolutely, and that gap between what should happen and what does happen is where most of us actually live. Some folks tell me we destroyed a woman for making hard calls about standards. Others say she got off easy, and that without sunlight, she would have kept quietly sanding down kids who didn't match the brochure. And late at night, when the cicadas sing, I think about keys, how each of us is holding one. Money, vote, voice, data, stubbornness, faith. And when you see a kid stuck in a hallway, you don't ask if it's your job. You try your key, and if it turns you open the door, you know what I mean? So here's my ask. Tell me if you think we exposed a pattern or punished a person. Tell me if you've heard "be realistic" used like a knife. Tell me the moment you decided your dream wasn't trash. Drop it in the comments. Push back if you need to share it. If you know someone who needs to hear it. And if this hit home, stick around. We're not doing fairy tales. We're doing the kind of justice that leaves fingerprints. I'll be in the comments with my mom listening.